Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the glorious, glamorous surroundings of Dublin 1 and to this World AIDS Day event, which is brought to you by GCN and will be raising funds, hopefully, for GCN and for HIV Ireland. And I also hope that it will be informative and even maybe possibly a little fun. So we've got a lot to look forward to. And in fact, we're going to start off actually, before we get to the information part of the evening, we're going to start off with some culture, would you believe? HIV and AIDS, culture, the very best kind of culture. And even before that, we're going to kick off remembering somebody. And one of the best ways to remember people, I think, is to text GCN to 5300. Because if you do that, you will be donating €4 to tonight's event. 2 of those euros will go to GCN and 2 of those euros will go to HIV Ireland. So you can do that at any time this evening. Text GCN to 5300 to donate €4, and we would really, really appreciate it. Give us your fucking money. So we are going to kick off remembering somebody, because earlier on this year, the community lost a really special person. The kind of person that comes along only once in a while, and the kind of person that if you were ever lucky enough to meet her, you love her. And that is Mary Shannon. She was an incredible ally to this community. She was one of the co-founders of the Irish AIDS quilt, and she was the custodian of the quilt. So first of all, I'm just going to show you a very short film to remember Mary.
I started with the AIDS Memorial Quilt in 1988. A great friend of mine died. When he was diagnosed HIV, he was a real fighter. And another friend of ours went to America and came home with a book about the quilt. And he said, I want one when I go. So when Joe died, we decided we'd make one. We started up a workshop in Dublin AIDS Alliance, and then people started to hear about it and started coming into the office to us. The stigma to people who were HIV at that time was dreadful. There was more families were separated, went to England, didn't see their loved ones again. The next time they seen them, they were dead. So it was giving people a chance to work through the grief, because they couldn't work through their grief because they couldn't talk to people about what they were going through. So by working together, we were all there and we were all involved, and everybody had been hit by HIV in one way or the other. So everybody knew everybody else's business. So it was a great, like a community that we built up there. And there's often nights we'd have 20. We could only have 2 in it other nights, but we used to have a great time in it. The amount of people in my travels around with the quilt who couldn't tell their families what they went away to England, they went to America, they went all over, and couldn't tell their families why they were going away because they couldn't talk about it here. And it just puts the human being behind the disease. So that's all I can say now. Okay.
Judith was actually at World AIDS Day event 2 years ago. in when we did the thing with the Professor Mulcahy. She showed the quilt to everybody. Hi, Judith Finley.
Hi, Panti, how are you?
Everyone, this is Judith Finley. If you don't know, Judith is from the National Museum of Ireland, and she's also from Queer Culture Ireland. And she's going to talk to us because they have an exhibition. They have an exhibition of the quilt at the moment. You want to tell us? Well, tell us a little bit about Queer Culture Ireland first, and then about the exhibition.
Okay, well, Queer Culture Ireland is a group that myself and Kate Renan from the National Gallery have formed. We started it last year because, like you said, I was working with the National Museum of Ireland. I still do, but with that hat on, I was doing research for the Rainbow Revolution exhibition. Kate, at similar time, was doing LGBT educational tours in the National Gallery. And we started meeting all these different people who were doing research and projects and exhibitions independently. And we realized that it was so much easier if you had support and help and a community. We already have an amazing community, so why not bring that community together in a cultural sense? So we thought it would be great to form some sort of network or group to bring us together so we could support each other. And when we started putting our heads together, we realized we had an amazingly energetic, exciting and creative bunch of people who could actually start putting together projects. So it's really snowballed into this exciting group. And this exhibition is the first of the major projects that we've put together as Queer Culture Ireland. It's in collaboration with LGBT Pride, who have been phenomenal people to work for. Every time we've said we want to do something bigger and better, they have supported us, and it's amazing.
Good.
We get that support. So yeah, it's been.
So tell us about the exhibition. What is it exactly, and where is it?
So the exhibition is in Film Base, which is on Curb Street in Temple Bar, and the exhibition is largely to do with the quilts. So it was sparked because of obviously the sad and sudden death of Mary, and that was a big blow to the community for us. But it was also sparked by the fact that we're going through this current pandemic, and this idea that any of us, like yourself, myself, anyone of that generation and older who had experienced AIDS during the 80s and 90s, there was all these echoes that we were experiencing of this current pandemic and what people went through at that time. And that seemed really poignant and really important, but there was no one really talking about it at the time. So that, and then it started sparking all these discussions and memories. I mean, one of the earliest conversations I had about this was with Tony Walsh, who you know.
The wonderful Tony Walsh, yep.
Yeah, so we were talking about it in March when this had all just started and the lockdown had started, and he was just saying how much this reminded him of the whole start of the AIDS crisis and how people were feeling, and that feeling of just not knowing what to expect or what was coming. So it snowballed from there. Mary died sadly in July, and at that time I had been working with Mary for the whole year previous. I had the quilts in my care. And when she passed away, her husband came to me to ask me if I would continue taking care of the quilts. So my number one priority then became, let's find a way to get these out and actually let the community see them again, because they're so poignant, beautiful pieces. And they say so much about the community and about the AIDS crisis. You know, they speak about solidarity and resilience as well as the heartache of everyone lost. So.
And it's well, one of the interesting things, because you're doing this in COVID times, the exhibition, you can view it from outside the Film Base. Is that right?
Yes. Well, our number one thing was, how do we make a COVID-proof exhibition? And so, like I said, I'm working in the museum, Kate's in the gallery. We're all in these institutions that are closed, and there's no way to really view them. They're all big Victorian buildings. Yeah. So when we approached Pride, we were saying, how do we get something where we guarantee we can see the objects, but you know, we can create a space for people to really take time to enjoy them. And then the option of Film Base came up thanks to Dublin City Council. So we're just really lucky to have a space like that where people can view everything from the street and it's ground level.
And I'm conscious, of course, that some of the people watching might not really know where Film Base is, but Film Base is in Temple Bar. It is that building that faces the Temple Bar Music Centre on Curved Street. It's easy to find in Temple Bar. And do you have a favorite part of the quilt yourself?
Favorite part of the quilt? I was looking at it the other day, and because my partner drives motorbikes, and I had a brief stint on motorbikes. There's a beautiful one to a guy called Jerome, and somebody actually painted the entire panel. It's just this beautiful work of art painted onto it. And on the side is a poem that Jerome wrote to his friends before he actually died, because they started creating the panel before he died. So he wrote a poem to put on it. So it's beautiful. It's a message from him to his friends, and just talking about how they should feel when he passes. And that's just gorgeous, I think. But there's so many people like that, it's so many stories.
Well, what I like about it is that each panel is so personal and different.
That's the thing. Yeah.
There are endless little stories in a way. There's
Yeah.
a comment here from Patrick Walt. So moved by the solidarity and the love that the LGBTQI community share, and the quilt really sums that all up. And I agree with him there. It's really the best of our community, the quilt.
Yeah. And what we do have alongside the quilts, we've also done a display on Gay Health Action. So Gay Health Action are now it's 35 years since they formed. And they were the people who really got the information out when no one else was releasing the information about how to stay safe.
Yes.
And I think even that's really interesting when you look at COVID and how much information is out there. And even with all of the clear information that's there, people are still doubting whether this health advice is right or that health advice is right. So I just, to think of how hard that must have been for people in the 80s, not having any access to information. Amazing that these brave people put it out there and got that information to the community. So.
And I think sometimes younger people who didn't live through it, they don't quite grasp how hidden those deaths were and how empowering and beautiful the idea of making these public patches, for the quilt.
Exactly.
How beautiful the idea was and how important and powerful the idea was at the time.
Yeah, no, it's hugely powerful. And even now to look at it, it's when you see the scale of them, when you go to Film Base in Temple Bar and you see the size of them in the full windows, it's phenomenal how much effort went into that and how much love went into that. And people, it's a total testament to people like Mary and all of the people that worked on those quilts. Not only did they create them, at the time they were also caring for and supporting for people who had AIDS, people who were living with it, people who were nearly close to death with it. They were also looking after families who lost people to AIDS, and they were taking those quilts out to schools. They took them on tours. They took them around the world in order to raise awareness and, change all of that silence that was existing around AIDS at the time. So,
and so do you have all of Mary's quilt, like everything?
So far, we think we have. So we have 11 quilts. There was some original documentation that said there may have been about 16 quilts. So there's a possibility that there's some quilts out there in the community. Maybe people have them. They could have them in their living rooms or, in their attic. If people have, we'd love to hear about them. So people can contact me or Kate. We're on queercultureireland@gmail.com. If people have information about more quilts, or if they just want to share their stories, we'd love to start building an archive of all of the different stories and memories people have, whether it's of people in the panels, whether it's of creating the quilts or them going on tour, any memories that people have. We're hoping that people will contact us to share that and we can build up a whole story around it.
Okay. I mean, it would be just such a beautiful sort of, not ending, but a story if you found another quilt, now.
I would love to find another one, yeah. And I do think there probably are ones there, but they're so personal. They maybe were created by someone who then kept it because it referred to, their own loved ones. So, and even we're not asking for them. We're just asking if people know of them, even if we could come and photograph them. Something that would be great.
And after the exhibition, are there any plans for them to be, in the National Museum or?
So what we're trying to do at the moment is we're trying to keep them in a situation where we can display them regularly. So National Museum is great. With my National Museum hat on, I will say it's great to have things in permanent care, and your fabulous dress is in with us at the moment.
Yes. Oh, it's a very good choice there. To choose my dress, yes, for the National Museum.
Absolutely.
Leaving no dinosaur and all.
Not in the slightest. Absolute diva. So the great thing about the national collections is it does mean things are permanently protected. The only issue with something like the quilts is it does sort of take it out of community circulation. So what we're doing right now at Queer Culture Ireland is very much treating it as a community piece to try and get people to see them and engage with them again and realize what they are. So we're talking, and it's very much early days, but we're talking about maybe trying to bring them to the Mansion House in January. If we can make that happen, it would be amazing, because
that would be great. Yeah.
Well, 13th of January, next year will be the 30th anniversary since they first appeared in the Mansion House.
Oh.
So that would be a beautiful circle. And then after that, we're hoping to go to the CHQ building over near Epic Migration Museum. And there's spaces similar to Film Base with the big windows where we can put them there. And it would be lovely to maybe try and replicate the tour that happened 30 years ago if we can, or do something like that. But I'd like to keep them in circulation more so people become more aware of the stories and still highlight that before they go into state care and, maybe don't.
And until when does the exhibition run in Film Base?
Film Base is till the end of this month. We hope it'll run a little longer to mid-January if we can get into the Mansion House. And then it moves over to CHQ from January to February.
Great. I'll leave you with a couple of comments that are coming, more comments that are coming in here, Judith. One is from This Is Me, Transgender Healthcare. I went to view the quilt today, beautiful and devastating at the same time. Chris Allen says the quilt looks incredible, stunning and moving at the same time. They were also young at the time of their passing, remembering all the LGBT people who lost their lives during the AIDS crisis in Ireland and across the world. And Maeve Foreman, great to see the wonderful Mary Shannon and all the work she put into establishing the Irish AIDS Club, to see her honoured and remembered this World's AIDS Day. And I couldn't be happier about that too. Fantastic, inspirational woman. Thank you very much, Judith. Lovely to see you. Loving the new hair color. I never say, do we say Happy World AIDS Day? I don't know that we would. But
I was actually thinking that this morning.
Well, I'm going to say it anyway. Happy World AIDS Day. I'm allowed. I've been living with HIV for 25 years, so I can say what I bloody well want. Happy World AIDS Day, Judith. Thank you for being with us. We are going to be back in just like a few seconds. We're continuing on, but in the meantime, I think this is a good time for me to remind you that you can donate by simply texting GCN. That's all you have to remember is 3 letters, GCN, and text that to 5300 50300 5300. And by doing that, you will be donating €4 two of them to GCN and 2 of them to HIV Ireland, and we will be eternally grateful for your support. Next up, I have one of my old sisters, because one of the most important things I think when it comes to dealing with HIV today is the stigma around it, and really the only way we're going to erase the stigma around it is that more and more people are open about living with HIV, and that can be difficult and hard to be open about it. And someone who did it spectacularly well earlier this year is our next guest, the lovely Veda. Hi, Veda. This whole event has suddenly become very draggy.
The same size.
Oh yeah, look at that. Hi, Veda.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. How are you?
Good.
You look good in your lovely kitchen.
Thank you. I was watching the Sock Destroyers reality show, so I decided to wear a harness and hair.
And do I see hair on that chest as well, Veda?
Great, isn't it?
Very cutting edge. Very cutting edge of you, darling.
No nails. Hair.
Well, Veda, delighted to have you on here for World AIDS Day. Now, you came out as someone who's living with HIV spectacularly earlier this year. You came out you released a song about it, a video to go with it. It was unmissable, unmistakable. You were announcing to the world in all one go. You didn't have to be picking up the phone and telling everybody. Tell me, first of all, why? Like how you've been living with HIV for a few years. So what prompted now?
I think I had the realization really that I had painted myself into a corner by not telling people. Mm-hmm. And I felt like it was time to share. And I felt like doing it my own way. And once I decided to take it on and write a song about it, that was really what moved things along was writing the song. But my reason for doing it that way was because I thought to myself, that people might judge me or think that I'm trying to get a lot of attention by doing it that way. But then I thought, why shouldn't I want a lot of attention?
Yeah.
Isn't that part of the stigma? Isn't that part of the problem and really what was holding me back in the first place? So I just went for it, big style. And people were so great, supportive, receptive. It was very positive and life-changing. And I recommend it to anyone who's out there struggling with that, to make moves in that direction for yourself, for no one else, but for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think because people, you might be, and I have to say that, Veda, I've known you for 30 years. We were sisters in drag, we're ex-bandmates, Sugar Rush. And so I was almost surprised for a second that you hadn't told me long ago, in a way, because that I'm living with HIV and that there wouldn't be any issues. But it was also, that was very instructive to me, to sort of be reminded again that the layers to the weirdnesses and stigmas and stuff around it are still quite powerful. So in a way, I just want to say thank you.
Well, thank you, and I want to say sorry too. That I didn't tell you, but my initial reasons were essentially, my very first reaction was to tell you and tell other people. But I was in a relationship at the time with someone who didn't want me to immediately. So when you don't do it immediately, you kind of put yourself in a different mindset almost. And personally speaking, like, I was kind of coming off the back of a pretty hardcore couple of years that had been very challenging, and not just for me, but for my whole family. And I felt like it just would have been the straw that broke the camel's back at that time. And then, like I said, I just sort of painted myself into a corner because I became very good at not telling. And I think, of course there was stigma and there was shame. There's almost something about being born very feminine, camp kid into a normal Irish family where you feel like you have a disease before you ever even have the measles. You know what I mean? So it was like this last confirmation. I know that you've talked about that before, where you're the camp kid, you come out as a gay kid, then you become a drag queen, and the stigma associated with that 20-something years ago was huge. It was not at all like it is now, kids. Getting involved in nightclubs and nightlife when drugs were very much part of that scene too. There was a lot of stigma about my career choices, and it just felt like that one thing too many.
Sometimes you feel like you're just too stereotypical or something, and that just annoys
every box. Absolutely.
But even the fact that we're not having to, but that we are having this conversation about why you decided, when even that all just annoys me, because that is all part of it. And I just hate all this bullshit. There shouldn't have to be any, people who have leukemia don't worry about it like this. Do you know what I mean? It's so weird. Anyway, thank you, Veda.
We're a product of our experience, especially older queens like you and I, who were teenagers in the 80s. It's you wish. But I feel like it is our responsibility at this time to be the ones to come out about lots of things, not just about HIV. People shouldn't have to come out about that. But I feel like we're having much more significant conversations around gender. We're all understanding more our own racism and our own place in that bigger picture. So I think it's time to have those sort of awkward conversations and just try and represent the truest version of ourselves.
Well, let me wrap it up by saying that when I give my sort of speechy things, around, one of the things I always mention when talking about the stigma is, the one thing that will end stigma is if everybody who's living with HIV, you can stand up and say it, because most people still think that HIV isn't in their lives. Most people still think that they don't know anybody with HIV, but that isn't true. They do know people, just those people have never felt able to tell them. And I think, that it's relatively easy for me to say, you should all just be open about it, and it would be a very different story if I was on the local football team and singing in the local choir in Ballahadreen, or wherever. So I'm aware of that. But so that's why I say that people who can come out about it must come out about it. So Thanks, Veda. Happy to have you on board the HIV wagon.
Darling, it's a pleasure to share with you.
And well, let's share your song about it with everyone. So, ladies and well, introduce yourself there, Veda.
Okay, this song is called "I Came Out One Night," and it starts in 1989 when I came out originally as a gay man, and it moves through to the 1990 experience of coming out as a non-binary gender person and a performing drag queen, and brings us right up to the present day to World AIDS Day last year, when I used the song to come out about being HIV positive. I'm trying to think of something to come out about later on in the show.
About being middle class, come out as being middle class.
Everyone knows I'm from Malahide.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Princess of Malahide and her video for I Came Out One Night. Please to enjoy.
I came out one night in 1989, and I haven't been home since then. Barely just 17, the newest trick on the scene, and I've been sticking around since then. With only a toothbrush, I followed my new crush back to bed. And after a dry spell, you dropped a bombshell, baby. The craziest part was all of the lies it took. And every time I swallowed the line and tried to avoid the hook, but I'm tired of not having enough, of not being enough, of not giving a fuck. I've been missing too much, I need kissing too much, I'm not giving up. I came out one night in 1999, and I haven't been me since then. I fell into a wormhole, a complete fucking asshole, and I haven't been me since then. Some hard conversations made me lose my patience all over again. And after a cold spell, we said our fond farewells. The craziest part was all of the love it took. And every time I swallowed the lie and tried to deny the hook, but I'm tired of not having enough, of not being enough, of not giving a fuck. I've been missing too much, I need kissing too much, I'm not giving a fuck about having enough, about being enough, about giving a fuck. Just self-hating too much, self-medicating too much, I'm not giving up. I came out one night. I came out one night. I came out one night. I came out.
Yay! Beautiful, Veda. Beautiful. This is a good time to remind you, please text GCN to 50300. We have some comments coming in there too. Deirdre Flaherty simply says, love you, Veda. And Pradeep Dashwar, I know Pradeep, forgive me for mangling his surname. Veda lady, thank you for mentioning the need to talk about racism. And I should probably just also say that, of course, this year's World AIDS Day event with GCN and HIV Ireland, very different than it has the last few years, but I think maybe better in a weird way, because previously it was very Dublin-centric. You had to be in Dublin to come to the event, whereas now, well, you can be tuning in from wherever you are on planet Earth, well, except for the large swathes of rural Ireland, which still can't get decent fucking broadband. But never mind, as soon as they relax the sort of travel restrictions, I will personally go around to those swathes of rural Ireland and tell you word by word, blow by blow, how wonderful tonight's event has been. Ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to talk to, well, I'd like to think of him as the beefcake of HIV Ireland. I also, when I sort of meet, especially gay men, and I say to them, oh, do you know Adam Shamley? If they say no, I say, you're not getting tested often enough. So ladies and gentlemen, please to meet the wonderful, the lovely, the charming Mr. Adam Shamley from HIV Ireland.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks for that. Adam.
I'm not sure I can take beefcake. I'll have to get to the gyms. They opened
well,
tonight, didn't they?
Cheesecake then. Cheesecake.
I'll take that.
Adam, of course, you are with HIV Ireland, and you're also with the Empower. And you're all about testing us gays, getting us all to access PrEP if we want to. You're the main go-to guy. So 2020 has been a bizarre, weird, fucked up year for most of us. And in your particular world, it must have been kind of particularly a mess. So tell us a little about the challenges of this year.
Yeah, it's been a really busy year for HIV Ireland and for all those really working in HIV and sexual health. We had lots of things to be proud of coming into 2020. So access to PrEP is an obvious game changer. It's one of the most effective tools we have in preventing HIV. So the rollout of the free PrEP program last year was a really important milestone. And we came into 2020 with the aim of, generating demand for PrEP and ensuring it was getting into the hands of those who need it.
And let's not assume that everybody watching knows everything. Very briefly, what's PrEP and how can people access it?
So PrEP is a medication that you can take. There's two different ways of taking it. I won't go into it madly deeply, but usually most people take one pill a day, and it's more than 99% effective at preventing HIV. So HIV negative people taking this pill, it's now free through a national PrEP program funded through the HSE, and it's accessible through sexual health services to those who are at a substantial risk or disproportionately affected by HIV. So the gays are in that category.
Yes, especially the attractive ones like me. Because I didn't get HIV by being unattractive.
We'll talk to the HSE and see if we can make that the tagline. I'm not so sure.
So yes, because you had some great successes, just coming up to 2020, with all of that, really game changing to get PrEP out into the community and all that. But so then, what have the challenges been this year? Because the clinics closed and.
Well, yeah, I think one of the other additional really positive things was around the U equals U message, and I know Andrew will talk a little bit about it, but that was also really important in getting that message out, and in the latter part of last year, the U Equals You campaign was led out by the HSE in collaboration with many of the kind of community organisations, and that was kind of really the first nationwide billboard, bus stop, social media kind of campaign to realign public understanding of HIV in probably 30 decades, 30 decades, 3 decades and 30 years. Because I suppose, there was a lot of chatter, there was a lot of talk, there was all of the, ads and campaigns that were very moralistic and shame-laden about HIV, AIDS and casual sex and stuff like that. And then when antiretroviral treatment came along, it kind of went silent. There was no big public campaign about, the advances. So the U Equals You campaign was a really big positive thing. So look, we were going into...
And just, you, as you said, Andrew Levitt's going to be on shortly, and he's going to mention that. But just in case anybody's confused, U Equals You means undetectable equals untransmittable. It means that if you're on effective drug treatment while living with HIV, you can't pass on HIV to anybody else.
A plus. Yes, that's it. So we were going into 2020 kind of riding on a wave of really positive change. And so we've go to Game Changers, Prep and U Equals You, but we also saw Dublin, Cork, Limerick and Galway join up to the United Nations Fast Track Cities initiative, which gives local and national political commitment to achieving 90-90-90 targets. So that's, 90% of people that are living with HIV have been diagnosed. 90% of those diagnosed are on treatment, and 90% of those on treatment are undetectable. So the aim is to break the cycle of transmission and end HIV by 2030. So that was all signed on to by our political leaders, and it's something that HIV Ireland and our partners in Cork and Limerick and Galway are all leading out on. So again, another really exciting commitment in ending HIV. And I think this was all kind of set to the backdrop of Ireland having had really kind of grown-up conversations about bodily autonomy and sex and sexuality with the 2 referenda. So, we were really excited about the kind of sea change, I suppose, that was in motion. And then in February of this year, we launched the Empower programme, which I manage at HIV Ireland. And we set that up to kind of respond to the sexual health and wellbeing needs of gay and bisexual men. And we have a fantastic team of peer outreach workers who do stellar work supporting the community around HIV and sexual health. And we run the peer-led rapid HIV testing service that's usually in Panti and other venues.
Which also in itself was a game changer, to take testing out of the clinic setting.
Totally. And for it to be
certainly how to support it.
Peer-led and community-based and kind of looking at normalising, going for a HIV test. So we launched all of that with loads of more exciting plans in the last week of February, and then 2 weeks later we were all in lockdown and COVID. And that has really changed so much. I was asked earlier today on a talk, what's the biggest lesson you've had during COVID, and it would be flexibility. Like 2020 has been like a yoga class in flexibility and in the way in which we offer our services. We've had to be really flexible and responsive. So because essentially overnight sexual health services, including on our own, they disappeared. And we had to regroup and rethink plans and get back on it, because HIV and STIs just weren't going to be taking a break. So it's been a real challenge, but we've kind of I would say we've rose to that challenge. We looked at how we could, with the rapid testing, with the venues being closed, we repurposed our spaces at HIV Ireland offices and made it COVID compliant and safe so that we could, restart rapid HIV testing in the office. And I must give huge credit to the volunteers who offer that service. It's all gay and bisexual men offering this to other gay and bisexual men. And we relaunched on June 15th, which is Irish AIDS Day, and the lads were completely on board to throw on the PPE and learn all about the new procedures and get stuck back in, which is a testament to them and really, knowing the demand that's out there for testing, they jumped right back in, and it's great to see that community involvement in it. So there's lots of demand. So alongside rapid testing, we launched Ireland's first free HIV self-test service as well.
Yeah, which is very exciting, I think.
It's kind of pushing the barrier a little bit and kind of looking at how, for some people, to get a HIV test, they want to sit in front of a nurse or a doctor. They like that comfortability of it being a clinical setting. For others, walking into, you know, your bar and talking to a peer, it, you know, lowers that barrier even further. Some people never want to cross the threshold of anything that identifies them as gay. Maybe it's an identity thing, or, you know, there's loads of different reasons, you know, being in a rural area and not having access to services. So it's kind of, it's looking at how we can make that more accessible. People register for one on the Empower website. We send a test kit out to them. It has all the up-to-date information on HIV and instructions on how to use the kit, and all the details of how to get in touch with the Empower program as well. Because I suppose, you know, it was no more than when we started testing at Panti bar, you know, people were saying, oh God, like, that's the worst place to find out, you know, that you're living with HIV. When actually they realized how much we've, you know, the structure we put around it to make sure it was, everything was working well. Similarly with this, we have a full structure of support around people who receive the test kit at home. They can, if they'd like to do it with us, we can organize a Zoom. We're on phone, email, WhatsApp, 12 hours in the day. So we're there to support people as best as we can. So yeah, I mean, that's a very long-winded way of answering your question. There's been lots of
challenges. Well, just to be clear, so the people can access a test that they can do themselves at home in the privacy and comfort of their own home through the Empower website, and which is
empower.hivireland.ie.
And it's not Empower, right? It's the letter M Power.
Power, yeah, exactly.
Because you're being all cool and down with the kids.
It's very, very queer.
Throwing, you know, consonants and, you know, out the window here. Which was very you, Adam. To me, that is the apart from PrEP, I mean, that is the most exciting change, I think, because so, you know, if somebody wants to do some radio thing or something about people living with HIV in this country, they come to the same three people who are openly living with HIV, and because it's still so hidden and difficult and surrounded in stigma and all of that. And so often I will be in a public space, especially when I used to do like the little bit of silly DJing on a Sunday in Panti bar. And very often what happened was I'd be like sitting there, and when I was doing that DJing on a Sunday, I was very accessible to the punchers. You know, I wasn't up on the stage or anywhere. I was just at the end of the bar. And I would notice somebody just standing quite near, and then a song later, I noticed he's gotten a bit closer, and then a song goes, and he's gotten a bit closer. And I could tell, I knew what was coming. And what was coming was he just found out, you know, relatively recently that he's HIV positive, and he had no one to talk to about it. And he thought, well, I know Panti is HIV positive. And that's what he was doing. And that would just kill me inside, that was still where we were. And I was very aware that if that's how that was for that guy, think of all the people out there who would actually like to get an HIV test, but just cannot bring themselves to cross the door of a clinic. So to me, it's very exciting to get testing right out into people's homes. And you're right. People were like, when they first heard you could get rapid testing in Panti bar, the George, whatever, they were like, what? Yeah. But it was absolutely fine. It wasn't, you know, there were trained volunteers. And let's be honest, if you do get a positive diagnosis, don't you want to be somewhere where you can get a whiskey? I mean, that's how I feel about it.
Free whiskey is forever reactive. Yeah. I think you're totally right. And it is hopefully what we're aiming to do with the Empower program, not only through the outreach, but also through our volunteers, is for people to know that we are available and that you can reach out and you can have that conversation with us, and that you'll be received not in a really sex positive and non-judgmental type way. I think one of the things, I do think there is really, I mean, there's such a good outlook. One of the things I'll say about when we started posting out all of these self-tests to literally every corner of the country, people started posting about it on their socials and tagging us. from simple things, like, this is a great initiative or whatever, but to young guy, like one young guy who did like a 10-minute talk with his mother and did a test with his mom and talked about why it was important to him and what her feelings were. I was like, this is incredible. It's so lovely to see how far we've come in normalizing that and just making a kind of routine. So yeah, I think hopefully we can get the word out that we're here and we've loads of opportunities to get tested, and that the outlook, regardless if you're negative or if you're positive, the outlook is really good.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. There's some comments coming in here. For Adam, comment from Noah Halpin. Stellar work, Adam, and all of the team at Empower, making testing accessible through a time when so little sexual health services were available. And I'm sure there's loads more saying how sex positive and not judgmental you are,
Adam.
Go on.
Yeah, go. No, you had.
Well, I was going to say, is there anything else you want to add before I get rid of you and
dispose of me? I would really like to bring up the issue of the continued closure of the Gay Men's Health Service.
Yes.
It's really a real, I think, very important thing for the community to start to make noise about. So like most people, I'm sure, are aware of the Gay Men's Health Service. It offers testing, treatment, vaccination and prevention services last year to nearly 12,000 gay and bisexual men and trans folk. It's the busiest PrEP clinic in the country. It's easily seen the bulk of PrEP users since it was made available last year. But they've all now been displaced, and every day it remains closed. We risk losing a lot of the advances we were just talking about. The GMHS doesn't just serve people in Dublin either. People travel from across Ireland to access the clinic, and that's testament very much to the clinic being accepting and non-judgmental space for gay men and trans folk. I will say, I mean, look, all of the sexual health services that are open are doing as much as they possibly can. The Guy Clinic at St. James's are seeing as many of the displaced Gay Men's Health Service PrEP patients as possible. Some Gay Men's Health Service, some GMHS service users are attempting to access the other hospital-based services, and through Empower we're helping as many people as we can to do that, and in the new sexual health service that we have within HIV Ireland too. But the reality is how do you fit 12,000 displaced service users into clinics that historically have been underfunded? It's a sector of our health system that's never really seen too much cash. And before COVID, they were, these services were already oversubscribed. So not having a big player in the sexual health, testing and treatment sector, now that it's gone for 9 months, we're in a lot of trouble. So
there's a petition, isn't there?
There is a petition, yeah. I think, we know that COVID is a really important priority, but while we continue to battle COVID-19, we must remember that, the HIV epidemic in Ireland is continuing. And we're soon to have really effective vaccines to prevent, COVID-19. But we already have all of the tools, as I've said, to end HIV. So look, the closing of one of the busiest, clinics in the country indefinitely will counteract so many of the gains that we've made. So, as a community, we need to bring this to the attention of those who have the power to return Gay Men's Health Service staff to their posts, so that the clinic can reopen. So GCN currently have a petition on their website. I'm sure they might drop in. Katie might drop in a link to that there, and I really call on everybody in the community and all of our allies to sign that petition and to bring it to the attention of our politicians, because it's such an important service, and the longer it's gone, I fear the harder it might be to get back. I definitely appreciate support in that sense.
Okay, so everyone needs to go to the GCN website, find the petition to reopen the Gay Men Health Clinic and sign that bloody petition and make some noise about it. And if you would share that on your Facebooks and your Twitters and your Instagrams and your TikToks and whatever your thing of the moment is, we would be very super grateful. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you very much, Panti.
It's been lovely to speak to you in your sexually positive and non-judgmental way.
And I'm looking forward to adding beefcake to my Grindr profile.
Well, I think we downgraded you to cheesecake, but whatever. So it's all good, Adam. It's all good. Thanks a million, Adam.
Thank you so much, Panti.
Yeah, see you soon, I hope. We're going to we have one more guest to talk to this evening, but this is probably also a good time to remind you to please text GCN to 5300. GCN to 5300 couldn't be simpler, and €4 will magically disappear from your bank account. And I know things are really tough and really difficult for so many of you. So I know any amount is an ask these days, but if you can possibly spare the €4, and you know, it all happens just out in the air, so you don't even really notice that it happened. You won't even miss the €4 probably. So please text GCN to 5300 and donate €2 to GCN and €2 to HIV Ireland to continue their great work, both of them. And we'll be back in just a moment with Andrew Levitt from ACT UP. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
I am loving your backdrop on indirect provision. Yes, please. Let's do that. Hi, good evening. Welcome. Happy World AIDS Day. I've decided we're allowed to say that. So,
yeah, I don't usually say it in public, but yes, behind the scenes.
Well, yeah. And this is behind the scenes. It's just me and you here. Actually, first, Andrew, just tell us a little about the restarting, if you want to say that, of ACT UP Dublin.
Well,
the Cliff Notes.
yeah. We're still sort of trying to figure out what we can do, with social distancing, with like the second lockdown and stuff. So we're still not able to meet in person. We're meeting online. We are doing when it's possible. We've tried to do some in-person things, a big focus for us is exactly what Adam was just talking about with the closure of the GMHS. That is a huge problem. And
it seems like a perfect campaign for you guys. That yes. Makes the best use of what ACT UP is good at.
Indeed, except that we can't exactly go sit on Stephen Donnelly's doorstep, Or maybe we can. I don't know. Well, who knows? I'm not ruling anything out. So
okay.
But yeah, COVID obviously is a huge obstacle.
Yeah. So what are you guys up to? What's the story?
We really, we're sort of in a letter writing kind of phase. We've been doing a bit of a strategic thinking, because again, as Adam said, I'm just going to echo everything he said. At the beginning of this year, we were in this incredible position where all of these things that so many people have been working so hard for so long were about to happen, were happening. They were underway. The PrEP program had begun. We got $5.4 million to invest in the in the beleaguered sexual health infrastructure in Ireland, and then COVID happened, and it's hard to know where things are at.
Yeah. And I just pop in to say that I can see here that the link to the petition for the Gay Men's Health Clinic has been posted in the YouTube comments, so people can go there and get the link. I just
want to say, that's fantastic. ACT UP did not have anything to do with the petition and the letter that was sent. So, you know what I mean? So it's fantastic to see other organizations in the community stepping forward and saying, this is a really important thing for the community. This is something we consider a community institution, although we don't really have any control over it as a community. Right? So That's
well, as COVID has made so perfectly clear. Yeah.
yeah.
You guys are very involved with the U equals U campaign.
We are indeed. I mean, that's something we were one of the first organizations in Ireland to sign on with the prevention access campaigns, like official U equals U.
Yeah.
Sign on thing. I don't know, a few years ago. So it's something that we've been pushing for a long time, and it's been, again, it was like incredible. Like the HSE was finally willing to go all the way and say like undetectable, no risk of transmission, you know, and say it in public and show people's faces, and a fantastic thing. But again, somewhat derailed. But yeah, so U equals U is you guys explained it earlier.
Super briefly, because we knew you were going to be talking about it. So yeah,
so one of the incredible things about HIV, right, is that it's actually kind of a funny moment in history, because there's a lot of like kind of exciting, positive stuff to say about HIV for the first time ever. We have, you know, a lot of which is around the incredibly effective treatment that we have. The treatment today is so different than what like the first effective treatment 24 years ago.
Yeah.
Just in terms of the variety of different options that are available, the side effects profiles for all of them are just so much milder. You don't have to keep anything in the refrigerator. Yeah. You know, you don't have to like eat one with food, one without.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, it's easy.
And of course, and you know, we have pre-exposure prophylaxis as well. And one of the effects of treatment, besides keeping people alive, which is obviously the most important thing about treatment, but there is this fantastic kind of side benefit, which is U equals U, that when your viral load is suppressed below a certain level, there's just no risk. It's not possible for you to transmit the virus sexually. Yeah.
Which is important, not just to stop the spread of AIDS, but also as someone living with HIV, yeah. You know, it was psychologically super important to me anyway, because in some weird way, I used to always feel sort of scarlet lettered or something. And to know that I am not infectious and I can't give it to you was mentally liberating for me. So, you know, it's important on a lot of levels. Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of the kind of the global strategy for the epidemic, that was really transformative. Like the idea that providing treatment to people could prevent new transmissions, like was unfortunately more persuasive to a lot of funders than just saying like this will keep people alive.
Yeah.
Right. So when it has this prevention thing, it's just, you know, it's terribly cynical, but it's led to a kind of shift in the global strategy. And so we have like today, 2/3 of people living with HIV, estimated rough, you know, guesswork, but about 2/3 of people worldwide are on treatment. People living with HIV are on treatment. That's up from about I think it was like 6.5% in like 2009.
Yeah, it's an incredible change. Yeah.
It's a huge transformation, and it means a lot of people are living you know, healthy lives. But they're also reliant on these systems of manufacturing and distribution and care provision that are really fragile. And that's another thing with COVID that we've seen, is that there's been interruption, certainly to diagnostic kind of stuff. Testing has gone way down, and this is across the board globally. Access to treatment hasn't totally dropped out, but it's certainly been, you know, compromised in some places more than others, and it remains a kind of long-term concern how much continued support there's going to be for HIV when COVID is destroying the economy and sucking up all this money.
Yeah.
So there's a real need to sustain this kind of this global commitment. I mean, this is the UNAIDS theme. What was their theme this year? Is global solidarity and shared responsibility. So they're really like, you know, people are very attuned to this incredibly important like need for wealthier countries and like, you know, the Global Fund and like philanthropic funders as well to really sustain the effort to you know, to keep building on the good work that we've seen.
And I think too, you know, we learned, people, when it came to COVID, they had learned some lessons from the mistakes they made with HIV. And I hope they continue to learn that lesson when it comes to access to the vaccine, not to be leaving poorer countries and more marginalized people out, because that is one of the huge continuing to be one of the huge problems with access to HIV medications. Absolutely.
That's exactly. I mean, the healthcare infrastructure in a lot of places is just so bare bones. But of course, the investments that have been made for the distribution and provision of treatment for HIV are going to be the same kind of like networks that are going to be providing the vaccine and stuff. These are going to be the same facilities. So I don't know where I don't know
where it's so true, because I mean there was this kind of slight feeling, especially among older gays, when this whole COVID thing of sort of, oh, we've been here before, like a sort of a recognition of this idea of this disease coming for us all or whatever. The difference was, of course, this one affected everybody. And so the response was huge and dramatic. And
that was always my first thought when people try to make this comparison, is like, well, I don't recall like the entire world running to a halt in 1981. Right?
Ronald Reagan didn't mention it until I'm not going to quote the right figure, but till X number of thousands of Americans had already died.
Exactly. Right. So it was resoundingly ignored. And it was also a different. I mean, the mode of transmission, because HIV is kind of intimately transmitted disease through blood and through sex and stuff. So it had a kind of there's this stigma that adheres to it, but there's this kind of shame and gloom that hangs around it. And also, if you get HIV and you don't get treatment, you probably will die, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean,
but it's a grim diagnosis, right?
Yes, absolutely.
The vast majority of people who contract it, they're not going to die. So it's a little different in that regard as well. But I mean, the thing that I wonder about is, like, did people learn the lessons about stigma and about not using fear-based stuff and about not using judgmental shame?
No, they absolutely don't, because people are shaming people now for catching COVID all the time, and shaming teenagers for wanting to be teenagers and all. People have learned, because people forget so quickly. I mean, I'm 52, and I forget that people who are 30 didn't really live through the AIDS crisis. And
it's weird.
It's sort of
much younger, right?
Us older queens to let people know what it was like. It's funny, you said, effective treatments for 24 years, and I was diagnosed nearly 26 years ago. So just sort of on the cusp. And the horror stories of the early years and the medications and the AZT and the awfulness. But one of the things that I think that young people, when I tell them my story, they want from me is, when I was 26, my doctor told me I was going to die, because at the time that was the scenario. And young people, they always want me to sort of have learned something wonderful and dramatic and poetic from that experience, and be able to pass on something, beautiful and worth knowing about life from that experience, whatever, to live every day as if it's your last, to stop and smell the flowers. And I always have to say to them, I didn't learn anything, about it, because the only thing best thing I come up with is that in a situation like that, the boring mundanities of life is what get you through it. Because you can go home from the doctors, lie on the sofa and cry all you want, but you're still going to run out of bin bags. You're still going to have to go and get toilet paper. And that is what gets you through these things. And then if you can do that long enough, you wait till the cavalry arrives in the form of treatments and Fiona Mulcahy, the wondrous, amazing, incredible Fiona Mulcahy at the Guy Clinic in St. James. Andrew, would you like to leave us with any words of wisdom, any pearls before swine?
I didn't come up with I mean, I think the the big message that I would say in terms of like what people should be looking at right now is advocating for the restoration of sexual health services, not just the GMHS, but the other services that are kind of open, not really up to capacity. You know, like that is just super important, and I really think that the community needs to take that on as an issue of real like concern and
yes.
But globally, the message is that we need to really focus on, continue the focus on ending the HIV epidemic, getting treatment and prevention tools like PrEP to everyone in the world. Because as Adam said, we have the tools to end the HIV epidemic. It's just a matter of political will to implement those tools and sustain them.
Yeah. I see a comment here from John Gilmore Kavanagh, absolutely some of my favorite people in the Irish LGBT plus community. Great event. I'm sure he meant you, Andrew. Thank you so much, Andrew, for being with us this evening. Continue the good work. I hope you can, once COVID's over, I expect to see you change to railings and lying down in the streets, blocking traffic as you're so good at. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you.
Delighted to have you with us. That we're sort of coming up out of time. So I just like to sort of remind you a few things before we go. One, text GCN to 50300 GCN to 50300 to donate €4. We would so much appreciate it if it's in any way possible. If you want to do it twice and donate €8, we'd love you twice as much. So please do that. If you want to get tested for HIV and you're weird about going to the clinic or whatever, remember you can go onto the Empower website, and you can order up an at-home testing kit there. Please avail of that if that is helpful to you. Empower, I see it here, empower.hivireland.ie. So empower.hivireland.ie, and you can get access to testing clinics there. Other than that, I just want to say thank you all so much for joining us. I hope you found it informative and possibly even mildly, vaguely entertaining. If anybody asks you about it, just remember to tell them how fucking gorgeous I look. Other than that, thank you so much. Thanks to GCN for organizing everything. Thanks to HIV Ireland for saving us all from HIV. Bye.